ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste, my dear friends. In this video, I am going to narrate Isha Upanishad. Isha Upanishad is a very important Upanishad. It is one of the principal Upanishads. It is a small Upanishad. The Isha Upanishad, which has 18 mantras, means verses, is strictly speaking not an Upanishad. It comes under the Samhita portion of the Shukla Yajurveda called Vajsneya Samhita as the concluding 40th chapter. But since it teaches about the Supreme Brahman, that is Brahma Vidya, it is called an Upanishad. It is in the form of a directive from a teacher to a disciple, giving the realities, tattva, hita, and purushartha. Upanishads, they form the last part of Vedas. That's why Upanishads, they come under Vedanta. Vedanta means end of Vedas. So Vedas deals with Kramkanda, Yajnas, Havans, and the last part of Vedas deal with the Atma, Vidya, science of Atma, or Brahma Vidya. So as Brahma Vidya is derived from Upanishads, Gita, and Brahma Sutra, or we can say Vedanta is derived from three main treatises of Hindus: Gita, Upanishads, and Brahma Sutra. Upanishads, they are the main treasure of Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya. These Upanishads tells us about the Supreme Brahman, the means to attain him and the fruits of attaining him. In other words, it talks about tattva, hita, and purushartha. Vedanta Desika has commented on this Upanishad because it represents the Visishtadvaita philosophy fully. The Isha Upanishad begins by saying that this world belongs to the Supreme One and that we must enjoy it with detachment. The first mantra indicates that the Supreme One is different from jivas and matter. The words idam sarvam indicates that both sentient and non-sentient entities are real. The words yat kincha indicate that everything has him as the inner self. In other words, He is omnipresent. Lord Narayana does not move, and yet he is faster than the wind. What this seemingly contradictory statement means is that the Lord, being all pervading, is present everywhere. So, where is the need for him to move anywhere? And yet, it is not that he is without the capacity to move if he so chooses. Nothing is beyond his capacity. He is both omnipotent, omniscient, and omniscient. He is far away and yet close by, says the Upanishad. He is close to those whose minds are focused on him, but he is far away from those who are attached to objects enjoyed by the senses. This means when we are fully attached with the worldly objects, it means we are away from Brahma, we are away from God. That's why detachment is the most important thing in the field of spirituality. Where our detachment lies, if we are attached with God, we are spiritual. If we are attached with the world, we are worldly people and away from Brahma. So we must inculcate the quality of detachment from the worldly objects if we want to move near the God. Those who aspire to get self-realization leading to liberation, they must get detached from the worldly objects. This Upanishad focuses on the self, which is called the Atma in Sanskrit. The Atman is our eternal soul, the one part of us that does not die. For Hindus, this self is also divine. So you will see in the passage that the self is often connected with the Lord. Our Atma or self is our divine spark within us that connects us to Brahma. This passage emphasizes the idea in Hinduism that one's spiritual journey is the journey to understand ourself, our soul. Hindus claim that coming to know the self will also lead one to better understand God because our soul is divine. So this passage focuses on how important our soul is, and so it should be the focus of our lives. Then the passage goes on to create a dichotomy between real knowledge and not knowledge, and that one will lead to eternal life and one will not. This section can be interpreted many ways, as all scripture can, but the not knowledge is connected in the passage with good works, while the real knowledge seems to focus on looking within and to the gods. So, while the passage definitely does not denigrate good works, it seems to insist that good works alone will not bring a person to true enlightenment. Good works have to be coupled with strong spiritual work focused on the self. One of the most important phrases in this Upanishad is the teaching that we should see all beings in ourselves and ourself in all beings, and that those who can do that will no longer have fear or taste death. Hinduism teaches not only is our soul the most important part of our being, and since our soul is divine, all beings have the same divine soul within them, making us all ultimately the same and unified. All this whatsoever moves on earth is to be hidden in the Lord the Self. When that hast not surrendered all this, then thou mayst enjoy. Do not covet the wealth of any man. Though a man may wish to live 100 years performing works, it will be thus with him, but not in any other way. Work will thus not cling to a man. There are the worlds of the asuras, gods, covered with blind darkness, those who have destroyed their self, who perform works without having arrived at a knowledge of the true self, go after death to those worlds. That one, the self, though never stirring, is swifter than thought. The Deva's senses never reached it. It walked before them, though standing still, it overtakes the others who are running. Matriswan, the wind, the moving spirit, bestows powers on it. It stirs and it stirs not. It is far and likewise near. It is inside of all this and it is outside of all this. And he who sees all beings in the self and the self in all beings, he never turns away from it. When to a man who understands the self has become all things, what sorrow, what trouble can there be to him who once beheld that unity? He, the self, encircled all, bright, incorporeal, scathless, without muscle, pure, untouched by evil, a seer, wise, omnipresent, self-existent, he disposed all things rightly for eternal years. All who worship what is not real knowledge, good works, enter into blind darkness. Those who delight in real knowledge enter as it were into greater darkness. One thing they say is obtained from real knowledge, another they say from what is not knowledge. Thus we have heard from the wise who taught us this. He who knows at the same time both knowledge and not knowledge overcomes death through not knowledge and obtains immortality through knowledge. All who worship what is not the true cause enter into blind darkness. Those who delight in the true cause enter as it were into greater darkness. One thing they say is obtained from knowledge of the cause, another they say from knowledge of what is not the cause. Thus we have heard from the wise who taught us this. He who knows at the same time both the cause and the destruction, the perishable body, overcomes death by destruction, the perishable body, and obtains immortality through knowledge of the true self, of the true cause. Isha Upanishad is one of the principal Upanishads. It consists of only 18 verses but of immense significance. This one is the only Upanishad that is part of Samhita. It is the end part of Shukla Yajurveda. Isha Upanishad acts as a testimony to the authenticity and ancient factor of the Upanishad. Let us decode Isha Vasha Upanishad, meaning that helps us understand clearly. Isha Upanishad got its name from the opening words of the first verse from the book. The subject matter of Isha Upanishad is profound, spiritual, and comprehensive. It helps in the formation of the foundation. As of all the Upanishads, Isha Upanishad and its subjects also include spiritual, profound, and forms of Vedic scriptures and thoughts. We understand the concept of the divinity of man as well as the manifestation of the same in nature. Isha Upanishad tries to convey the knowledge of spiritual solidarity in Isha Upanishad, a compilation of 18 verses. Isha Upanishad is a compilation of total of 18 verses. Let us understand how and what these Isha Upanishad verses try to explain. Verse 1. First and foremost, just in the initial stage, the Upanishad explains how everything on the earth and in this universe is transitory. Thus, all of the things in the world can be labeled as relatively real or illusory. It focuses on showcasing the importance of anything that moves on the earth. All those things that can seem to be real should be covered with the Lord. An indwelling self, you can manifest all things in motion on this earth and thus know the importance of self-worth. The only reality or truth according to Isha Upanishad is acquired when the soul realizes its world of name and form and thereby also renounces what can be said to be worldly desires like sun, wealth, and words. Thus, realize your true nature of self through determination and renunciation. The world is not something you should abandon, but is to be lived in by being attached to the wealth in any form and thus accept that the wealth is illusory. The real world is our self dwelling and does not entail giving up on the attachment. The first verse is meant for those who fit the ideal candidate of renouncing desire through knowledge, and for those who can grasp this knowledge. The second verse imparts instruction on how to handle the situation. Verse 2. By the following karma, one should be able to live a life on this earth for 100 years. For an individual who follows such rules and lifestyle, there is no other way from this. Here, karma will always stay by your side. The person who has not yet attained the true knowledge of the lead life can engage himself in the life of karma which is joined by the Vedas. Most of us cannot actually differentiate our actions from our human attachments. Thus, karma can actually help us to sharpen our sense of reasoning and discrimination and thereby helping us purify our minds. Verse 3. This verse of the Isha Upanishad warns us about negating the principle. It states that anyone who tries to defy the principle will be thrown into utter darkness, wherein the individual will suffer through the worldly life and thus, as an atonement, the wisdom will shine upon him. Verse 4. Like we discussed earlier, the concept of Atma is an unmoving entity and thereby transcending all that is moving. It works faster than the mind or any senses, and it is upon the Atma to project the actions of any individual. Atma is an unmoving entity and thus prevails everywhere, leaving no space for itself to move. Verse 5, 6, and 7, where we understand how Atma pervades. At the beginning of verse 5, we can see how verse 6 and 7 talks about how the world is viewed and how it is perceived with respect to others. It also explains in detail how he cannot reject or cannot have a passion or geared towards the world as it is the Atma and everything is just a part of it. Verse 8. The pursuit of knowledge and karma are two important things in attaining immortality. Both are necessary and thus Pursuing one will lead you to pursue the other. While one tries to practice karma, oversee death, you can aspire to attain immortality. Thus, we can say that both need to go together to reach the destination. As the nature of Brahma is a stable one, it is faster than the mind. The senses cannot overtake it. It is already present when the mind tries to reach it. Only an infinite entity that is stationary and pervasive can qualify itself to become the self or the Atma. Verse 9, 10, and 11. The verses in this category describe the empirical knowledge as Vidya and Avidya. The knowledge here is seen as worldly knowledge for Vidya, and Avidya blind and delude the person from the true reality. Both of them transcend to the highest form of knowledge. Avidya is a theoretical grasp of self without sincere and honest efforts to realize the self. Avidya, on the other hand, is to take delusory experiences perceived through true senses. Avidya binds people with the illusory world. Through the knowledge of Vidya, a person comes to realize how they want to go further. Most of us are ignorant about higher knowledge, but an illuminated person can help you out of love as he elaborates the concept of truth and honesty. Vidya is the knowledge that leads an individual towards realizing his goal. However, the people under the veil of Vidya are difficult to convince due to their nature of ignorance. Just by hearing about the truth, they think and are convinced they have realized the true self. But this is not true. Under these false senses of achievement, they might even go teaching and reaching others. They will also start behaving like they have realized the truth. These individuals, without even going through the hardships of life, traditions, rituals, and practices, delude themselves in harming the belief and notions of others. Hence, it is said that those who have or live and are under the influence of Vidya knowledge actually are pushed more and more under ignorance. Verse 12, 13, and 14. If we consider Atma to be limited in space and time, is one binder of the same. We can separate from the seer and the seen. This can help you set right the combination of karma and knowledge in your duties of the world. Thus, an individual can meet the objective of the world with supreme consciousness and meditation. These are some of the central offsprings of knowledge through Isha Upanishad. There are two kinds of practices to achieve liberation which are being discussed here. One includes escaping karma by combining it with knowledge of the, and the second one is to free yourself from the dispassion and the discrimination. Both of these practices help the mind to firmly fix oneself in the supreme consciousness. Verse 15, 16, 17, and 18. In these verses, the Isha Upanishad describes how, out of compassion and love for all, an individual arrays and reveals his true nature of the Lord. The eternal truth is hidden behind the word Satya Dharma. The golden plate described in verse represents the sensual pleasures of the material world, which are represented as an enticement. If an individual gives us into the enticement, you can never liberate yourself from this world. In this set of verses, it is also implied that the Purusha pervades in all and is attached to the worldly attachments. This will give you pleasure as well as suffering. Summary of Isha Upanishad. At the end of this compilation of verses, it is discussed that there is a distinction between the world of sensual pleasures and the world of enlightenment, and calls for the need to be on the right path for their life journey. The prayer is directed towards God of fire and thus the one who can destroy all the evil. Agni is described here as the utmost symbol of knowledge, and thus there exists a prayer that is in fact a call to seek the knowledge to distinguish between the rights and the wrongs. Among all the principal Upanishad, Isha Upanishad, also known as Isha Vasha, is the only part of Samhita that consists of the 18 verses as explained in detail above. This Upanishad tries to get a hold of the extreme ends and disengage the different problems while playing him in the right direction. Renunciation is to get the extreme of life, but also it is a type of enjoyment to be equally integral. The actions of an individual must be complete and ungrudging, but the freedom of the soul must be absolute and pure. Unity of the soul and the actions must be a goal. Thus, absoluteness can be brought to the highest term by including it in the multiplicity of the things around us in the world, the unity of all existences. So, this is a very small Upanishad but very important. This Upanishad emphasizes on the renunciation, detachment. We must start detaching ourselves from the worldly objects so that we can be very near to the Brahma. By detaching from the worldly objects, we are moving towards Brahma, and thereby we are going to be spiritual. So this ends this video. I'll give one or two more videos on Isha Upanishad because this is very important Upanishad and one of the principal Upanishads. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar, my dear friends. Thank you.